Well, this week in Washington was very important because it was the starting gun for the let's get rid of Joe Biden if you're a Democrat who wants to win in 2024 movement. And it was started off on Monday by the man that Biden says is his favorite newspaper columnist, a man named David Ignatius in the Washington Post. David Ignatius has been extremely friendly to Joe Biden. He's basically followed the party line on Bidenomics and everything else. For him to break ranks and say, well, Joe Biden has been a great president. We should honor him, but it's time to give him the proverbial gold watch and watch him ease off into the sunset and transfer power to another generation because the burdens of office have weighed heavily upon him. Well, that's the nice way of putting it. What the Democratic donor class and everyone who attends dinner parties as a Democrat in New York and Washington has been saying for months is the fellow's going gaga on us. And the risk that we take, I mean, think about this. For the next 14 months, if you're a Democrat whose primary goal is to retain power, you have to ask yourself, what if Joe Biden suddenly has a brain freeze like Mitch McConnell, the Senate Republican leader, did the other day for the second time, in which he just stares at the camera for 30 seconds saying nothing? What if he falls and he doesn't get up? What if he goes completely rogue and starts sputtering complete nonsense the way that he did in the press conference in Vietnam? If you saw that, it was astonishing. Biden was just riffing as if he was engaging in a game of free association, and he was still answering questions in that manner when his staff had to end the conference and usher him off the stage with Biden's last words being, "I guess I have to go to bed now." I mean, this is astonishing behavior for a president, and the fact that the news media has been complicit or silent in this for so long is one of the great. I mean, forget cover-ups in Washington. This is a frontal up. This is in front of everyone's eyes. We can see the man deteriorate, and nobody's doing anything about it. Well, this week, the Democratic donor class did do something about it. They have had lined up all of their newspaper columnists that are at their beck and call to start calling for Biden's departure, and the pressure will only build if Biden does not, shall we say, take the hint and act on it. No one is ever too old. I'm a person in my 60s. I think I have many years ahead of me. But the vagaries of senior status weigh differently on some people. Joe Biden is 80 years old, 81 coming up in a few weeks. Donald Trump is only 3 or 4 years behind him, but you can see the difference in the vigor. Now, Trump is slowing down too, don't get me wrong. But Biden looks so much more advanced in age and acts so much more advanced in age. And look, you can say Donald Trump doesn't make sense in a lot of areas. Biden doesn't make sense in any area in terms of verbal communication. I mean, there's even a cartoon out, and it shows C-3PO from the Star Wars movies, a very distinguished fellow played by a British actor who says, "I am knowledgeable in 6 million forms of communication." The next panel shows Joe Biden trying to give a speech. The last panel is C-3PO from Star Wars saying, "I get nothing from this." Well, in Washington, the definition of a political gaffe is when someone inadvertently tells the truth. And Nancy Pelosi told the truth, which is why she made news, and it's been called a political gaffe. A vice president does do nothing. Their duties, as specified in the Constitution, are de minimis. And she basically goes to funerals. She was given one major assignment, which was clearing up the border problem. Well, A, that's insoluble as a vice president, and B, how's that working out for her? And I think that was an insult, frankly, to her stature as a vice president to give her that assignment. I think that what Nancy Pelosi was really all about is she's on the edge of joining the parade that Joe Biden has to get off the stage. Now, she has to be careful about this because she's 83 years old. Now, she's nowhere in Biden's condition, but you want to be careful as an 83-year-old publicly urging an 81-year-old colleague of yours off the stage. So what she's doing is, I think she's been sent out to send the message that Kamala Harris is not automatically the replacement for Joe Biden, because remember, her approval ratings are below Joe Biden's. She's at about 39%, he's at about 42%. So the real thing that has saved Joe Biden these last few months is that the putative front runner to replace him, should he not run for president, is a vice president who is not as respected and not as popular as he is.
And if Kamala does step in, do you believe that would be disastrous then?
Well, step in what way, of course? No one says that Biden is about to resign and turn over the presidency to Kamala Harris. He's a proud man. I doubt that he would do that unless Mrs. Wilson, I'm sorry, Jill Biden. That's an inside joke regarding how Woodrow Wilson's wife tended to run things during a period of his illness in the 1920s. So I believe that unless Jill Biden was part of the agreement, Biden will remain as president through January 2025. However, should he decide not to run again, um, if it happens early enough in the next 2 or 3 months, other Democrats will have the time to put together a campaign, raise money, and run in the primaries to confront Kamala Harris, who almost certainly would run as Biden's vice president. And that would mean a very competitive race. Now, Kamala Harris has one major advantage. 62% of Democratic primary voters are either minority or women. And that gives you a base of solidarity, if for nothing else, on affinity grounds. However, Kamala Harris is, if she performs as poorly as she did in the 2020 race, I think any number of Democrats, Gretchen Whitmer, the governor of Michigan, Governor Gavin Newsom of California, others could challenge her and beat her. And now it gets more complicated if Biden leaves in the spring or late winter of next year, because by then the filing deadlines for the primaries will have passed, and you'll be in a situation like Lyndon Johnson was in 1968, where a surprise challenger came out of nowhere in New Hampshire and almost beat him. Now that could happen in 2024 with Robert F. Kennedy Jr. The media is ignoring Robert F. Kennedy Jr., but he's building support in a grassroots army in New Hampshire. Should he perform like Eugene McCarthy, who challenged Johnson in 1968 and almost beat him, that could drive Biden out of the race, just as Johnson left the race only 2 weeks after the New Hampshire primary in 1968. That would create a very chaotic situation, because you'd probably have the party nominee decided in the smoke-filled rooms, like it used to be. Now, there's a third option. If Biden is really stubborn and stays through, wins enough primaries to get the delegates, but what if he continues to exhibit signs of weakness? Then you go to the Democratic Convention in August of 2024, and there the power brokers, the delegates, they don't have to nominate Biden. If Biden is clearly seen as weak, very few of those delegates are personally loyal to Biden. They're loyal to winning the White House again in 2024. So you could see surprises at a Democratic convention if Biden is seen as really weak and he refuses to take the hints that he's been getting.